Look at this man's eyes, wide, bulging, staring at nothing and everything at once. The whites visible all around the irises. This is the face of someone who has just realized they've destroyed everything. His mouth is open, but no sound comes out. His hands are covered in blood. His right hand presses desperately against a wound on his son's head, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to hold the skull together, trying to push the brain matter back inside where it belongs. But it's not working. The blood keeps flowing, thick, dark, arterial, pooling on the ornate carpet beneath them, soaking into his robes, spreading outward in an irregular stain that will never come out. The son's eyes are half closed, fading, confused. He's dying, and he doesn't understand why. His face doesn't show anger, doesn't show accusation, just bewilderment. A child's question written across a grown man's features. Why did you hurt me? And the father holds him, clutches him, pulls him impossibly close, as if love could reverse what rage has done, as if an embrace could undo a fractured skull, as if holding tight enough could keep death from taking what violence has already claimed. This is Ilya Repin's Ivan the Terrible and His Son, painted in 1885. 6 feet 7 inches tall, 8 feet 4 inches wide. When you stand in front of it at the Tretyakov gallery in Moscow, it doesn't just show you tragedy, it overwhelms you, forces you to witness it, to feel it, to carry it with you long after you've walked away. And here's what makes this painting different from every other depiction of historical violence. It's been attacked. Twice. In 1913, a man walked into the gallery with a knife. He stabbed the canvas 3 times, screaming, "Enough blood, enough death." The slashes cut through Ivan's face, through his son's body, through the blood-soaked carpet, deep, vicious, deliberate. In 2018, it happened again. Another man, a metal pole ripped from a crowd barrier, smashing through the protective glass, puncturing the canvas. His words as they dragged him away: Ivan did not kill his son. The gallery curator responsible for protecting the painting in 1913, when he heard about the damage, he walked to the nearest train station and jumped in front of an oncoming locomotive. Killed himself. The painting survived the attack. He didn't. This painting doesn't just show violence. It creates it. It pulls rage out of people who look at it, makes them want to destroy it, to make it stop existing, to erase what it reveals. Why? Because 304 years before Repin painted this, something happened in the Kremlin. Something Russia still cannot agree on. Something that may have been the greatest act of self-destruction in Russian history. And that expression you see in Ivan's eyes, that horror, that realization, that silent scream of what have I done, that's not imagination, that's not artistic interpretation. That's what it actually looked like. November 16th, 1581, the Kremlin. Late afternoon. The argument has been escalating for 20 minutes. Ivan Ivanovich, the Tsarevich, heir to the Russian throne, backs away from his father. He's trying to explain. His pregnant wife was dressed in a way his father found inappropriate. That's all. Just clothing. Just a comment about modesty. But Ivan the Terrible didn't see it as clothing. He saw it as disrespect, as his authority being challenged, as his son's wife mocking him in his own palace. So he hit her, hard enough to make her miscarry, hard enough to kill his own grandchild before it was born. And now his son is here in the throne room, demanding an explanation, demanding an apology, demanding his father show some humanity. Father, you had no right. But Ivan the Terrible isn't listening. His hand tightens around his staff, iron-tipped, ornate, heavy. The kind of weapon that announces power, that demands submission. His eyes change. Anyone who has served in his court knows that look. That's the look that means someone dies today. You dare question me? The staff rises. Ivan Ivanovich sees it. His hands come up. Father, please. The sound it makes when it connects is wrong. Not a clean impact. Not a simple blow. It's wet, crunching, splintering, the sound of bone giving way, the sound of a skull fracturing under iron and fury. Ivan Ivanovich stumbles backward. His hand goes to his temple. Blood immediately pours through his fingers. Too much blood. The kind of bleeding that comes from inside the skull, from vessels that should never be exposed to air. He looks at his father, and his expression, that expression Repin will capture 304 years later, isn't hatred. It isn't even pain. It's just confusion. Why? The staff falls from Ivan the Terrible's hands. It hits the carpet with a dull, heavy sound, and in that instant, everything changes. No. Ivan the Terrible drops to his knees. He catches his son as he collapses. The blood is everywhere now, on his hands, on his robes, spreading across the carpet in a dark, irregular pool. No, 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 no. He presses his hand against the wound, trying to stop it, trying to hold the pieces of skull together. His other hand clutches his son's body, pulling him close, as if proximity could undo what distance couldn't prevent. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But Ivan Ivanovich is still bleeding, still staring, still asking that question with his fading eyes. Why? And Ivan the Terrible understands. In this moment, completely, irrevocably. He hasn't just killed his son. He's killed his heir. He's killed his dynasty. He's killed Russia's future, all because he couldn't control his rage for 30 seconds. The Tsarevich will die 5 days later. 5 days of Ivan holding him, praying, begging God for a miracle that will never come. 5 days of watching the light fade from his son's eyes while knowing his own hand put it out. And this moment, this exact expression of realization and horror will haunt Russian art for centuries. Because in 1885, Ilya Repin will paint it, and he will paint it so accurately, so viscerally, so unbearably truthfully that people will attack it, will try to destroy it, will die because of it. That's how powerful this image is. That's how dangerous the truth can be. St. Petersburg, 1885. Ilya Repin is 41 years old, one of Russia's most celebrated artists, and he's about to paint something that will nearly destroy his career. 4 years earlier, on March 13th, 1881, Repin witnessed something that changed him forever. Tsar Alexander II was traveling through St. Petersburg in his carriage when a terrorist threw a bomb. The explosion tore the carriage apart, but Alexander survived, wounded, bleeding, but alive. He stepped out to check on his guards, to see who had been hurt, to show he wasn't afraid, and that's when the second bomb went off. It shredded his legs, tore open his abdomen, left him lying in the snow, bleeding out, surrounded by pieces of his own body. Repin didn't see the explosion itself, but he saw the aftermath. He saw the blood in the snow. He saw what a bomb does to a human body. He saw how quickly power and authority dissolve into meat and bone. And then he watched the executions. The assassins were caught, tried, sentenced to death. They were hanged in public, and Repin was there. He saw them led to the gallows wearing signs around their necks that read, "Regicide." Alexander III took power immediately. His father had been a reformer, had abolished serfdom, had tried to modernize Russia. Alexander III did the opposite. Secret police flooded the streets. Censorship tightened. Public executions became common. Pogroms against Jews were encouraged, sometimes organized by the state itself. Dissidents disappeared. Revolutionaries were hanged. Russia became a nation ruled by fear. And Ilya Repin, watching all of this, decided to paint a warning. He painted Russian brutality before. In 1870, he painted barge haulers on the Volga, showing 11 men dragging a massive ship along the riverbank like beasts of burden. Economic violence made visible. In 1880, he'd painted the arrest of a revolutionary soldiers dragging a protester away while his family watched helplessly. Political violence made real. But this, what he was about to paint in 1885, would be different. He decided to paint Ivan the Terrible killing his son. Not subtle, not safe, dangerous. This wasn't just a historical painting. This was commentary disguised as history. This was a warning. This is what autocracy does. This is the cycle of violence. This is Russia devouring itself. But here's what makes Repin's painting genius, what makes it unbearable to look at. He doesn't paint Ivan the Terrible as a monster. He paints him as human, horrified, destroyed, broken by what he's done. That's more terrifying than any monster, because monsters don't feel remorse. Monsters don't clutch their dying children and whisper apologies into their hair. Humans do that. Humans destroy everything they love and then beg forgiveness from the corpses. Repin would later write, "I was compelled to paint this. I saw violence everywhere in Russia. The pogroms, the executions, the cycle of brutality. I wanted to show what violence does to the soul of the perpetrator. Ivan the Terrible is not a monster in my painting. He is a father who has destroyed everything he loved. That is the true horror." Alexander III saw the painting and immediately banned it from public display because he understood exactly what Repin was saying. This could be you. This will be you. This is what happens when absolute power meets human fallibility. Repin didn't paint this from imagination. He cast it like a film director casts a movie. For Ivan the Terrible, he used two models. The facial structure, the beard, the bone structure came from an artist named Grigory Mayasoyedov. But the eyes, that expression of absolute horror, that came from a composer named Pavel Blarenberg. For months, they posed. Repin studied how shock manifests physically, how guilt changes a face, how a man looks when he realizes he's destroyed everything. But it was the Tsarevich, the dying son, that Repin obsessed over. He chose a writer named Vsevolod Garshin as his primary model. When friends asked why Garshin, Repin said, "He has the face of a man irreparably condemned to perish. This is what was needed for my Tsarevich." Garshin suffered from severe depression, bipolar disorder, suicidal thoughts that came and went like waves. He would disappear for weeks, consumed by darkness, then emerge and write brilliant stories about war and madness and the weight of being human. In 1888, 3 years after the painting debuted, Vsevolod Garshin climbed to the top of a stairwell in his apartment building and jumped. He died from his injuries 5 days later, the same amount of time it took the real Tsarevich to die after his father struck him. Repin would later say, "I painted death while he was still living. The curse, it seems, began with the models." But Repin's obsession went deeper than just faces. He needed medical accuracy. He needed this to be real. He interviewed doctors. What does a skull fracture look like? How does blood flow from a brain injury? What color is it? How fast does it clot? He rented an authentic period carpet from a museum, Persian ornate, red and gold in intricate geometric patterns, the kind of carpet that would have been in the Kremlin throne room. And then he obsessed over the blood. For weeks, Repin mixed and remixed the red. Too bright, and it looks fake, theatrical, like stage blood. Too dark and it loses impact, becomes just another shadow. He needed it to look like real arterial blood. Thick, viscous, the deep red that comes from inside the body. He'd seen that color before. In 1883, he traveled to Spain and witnessed bullfights. He'd watched the matador drive the sword between the bull's shoulders and seen the blood pour out, soaking into the sand. That's the color he wanted. That's the color he painted. Repin worked on this painting for years. He started in 1882, finished in 1885. 3 years of obsessive work. He painted multiple versions. In another version, his eyes are closed, the colors more saturated, the grief more operatic. But in the final version, the one that hangs in the Tretyakov gallery today, the staff is discarded, thrown aside. Lying on the floor in the corner, Repin chose the moment after rage. The moment when you realize what you've done. The moment when you can't take it back. And when he finished, when he finally stepped back and looked at what he'd created, Repin felt something he'd never felt before about his own work: fear. He refused to keep the painting in his studio. He told friends it brought bad luck, that it felt possessed, that he'd captured something that shouldn't exist. Even the artist was terrified of his own creation. His friends asked, "Why did you paint this?" Repin's answer, "I had to. Russia needs to see what we are." Before we go deeper, before we examine every detail, every brushstroke, every hidden element, just look at the painting as a whole. What dominates everything is red. Not the red of royalty, not the red of power or ceremony or imperial authority, the red of blood. It's everywhere. The carpet beneath them is red, soaked darker where the blood has pooled. Ivan's robes are red, though whether that's their original color or whether they've absorbed so much blood, it's impossible to tell anymore. Even the background seems tinged with it, as if the walls themselves are bleeding. The painting is nearly 7 feet tall and over 8 feet wide. When you stand in front of it at the Tretyakov gallery, you can't maintain distance. You can't observe it casually. It overwhelms you. It demands you witness what's happening. The composition forms a rough triangle. The two figures create a pyramid shape, which in classical art represents stability, strength, foundation. But here, that triangle represents the opposite. This is collapse. This is everything falling apart. The stable form used to show instability. The strong shape used to depict weakness. The lighting is pure Baroque, dramatic, theatrical. A single light source from the left, casting deep shadows and making the blood almost luminescent. It's Caravaggio's chiaroscuro technique applied to a 16th century Russian tragedy. The contrast between light and shadow is extreme, unnatural, as if this moment is lit not by candles or windows, but by divine judgment. And the red takes on another meaning when you understand Orthodox iconography. In Russian Orthodox icons, red represents divine life, heavenly energy, the life force itself. It's the color of resurrection, of glory, of theological truth made visible. Repin takes that sacred red and perverts it. This is still divine life, but spilled, wasted, destroyed. The life force is here, yes, but it's pouring out onto a carpet. It's soaking into fabric. It's being lost irretrievably while a father watches. The heavenly energy has become earthly horror. Against this red, Repin places the sun in green. His kaftan is green, his boots are green, even his skin takes on a greenish pallor as the blood drains from his face. In Orthodox symbolism, green represents death, decay, the end of earthly life. So the painting becomes a theological statement. Divine life, red, flowing out of the body. Death, green, flowing in to take its place. The transition between states made visible, and the faces. Even from across the room, even before you can see the details of the wound or the texture of the blood, the faces tell you everything. Ivan's face shows pure horror, that bulging-eyed stare, that open mouth mid-scream, the realization that cannot be unrealized. The son's face shows confusion, that half-lidded gaze, that slight tilt of the head, the question that will never be answered. This is the moment after the rage, after the violence, after the point where anything can be undone. This is what it looks like when you destroy everything you love in a single instant. And Repin has frozen it, made it permanent, forced us to look at it, to sit with it, to understand what it means. The red will never wash out of that carpet. The blood will never go back inside the body. The moment will never unhappen. Some things are irreversible. This painting makes that unbearably clear. Look at how Ivan holds his son. The posture is instantly recognizable to anyone familiar with Christian art. This is a Pieta. The Pieta, one of the foundational images of Christianity. The Virgin Mary cradling the dead body of Christ after the crucifixion. Grief made physical, loss made sacred. The mother holding her son's broken body and confronting the cruelty of the world. Michelangelo's sculpture is the most famous version. Mary sits, serene in her sorrow, holding Christ's limp body across her lap. His head tilts back, his arms hang loose. The composition forms a perfect triangle of maternal grief. Repin deliberately references this. The angle of the Tsarevich's body, slumped backward, head lolling, arms limp, mirrors Christ's position in countless Pieta compositions. Ivan's protective embrace mirrors Mary's. The triangular composition is identical, but Repin inverts it, perverts it, turns it into something obscene. Because in a Pieta, the mother is innocent. She didn't kill her son, she's mourning a tragedy inflicted by others. Roman soldiers drove the nails, Roman authority gave the order. Mary's embrace is pure grief, pure maternal love confronting loss. But Ivan the Terrible? Ivan is both Mary and the Roman soldiers. He is both the mourner and the murderer. His embrace contains both desperate love and unthinkable guilt. He is holding the body, and he is the reason the body is dying. The sacred image of maternal grief becomes the profane image of paternal murder. And this is why the painting was so shocking to Russian Orthodox viewers in 1885. This isn't just politically dangerous. This is religiously offensive. This is blasphemy. Repin has taken one of the most sacred compositions in Christian art and filled it with patricide. He's taken the image that represents holy sacrifice and used it to show unholy violence. He's taken the symbol of divine love and made it show human rage. It's like painting the Virgin Mary with a knife in her hand and Christ's blood on her robes. The form is holy. The content is horrific, and that contrast makes it unbearable. Look at Ivan's left arm, wrapped around his son's back. His fingers grip the fabric of the Tsarevich's clothing, clutching tight. This isn't gentle. This isn't tender. This is desperate. This is a man trying to hold on to something that's already gone. And look at how close Ivan pulls his son. The Tsarevich's face is inches from Ivan's, uncomfortably close, intimately close. Ivan is trying to pull his son back into the safety of his embrace, as if physical closeness could undo the violence, as if love could reverse death. But the Tsarevich's left arm hangs limp at his side, dead weight. No tension in the muscles, no attempt to embrace back, no reciprocation. This is entirely one-sided. Ivan is holding on, his son is letting go, yet there's one detail that makes this even more devastating. Look at the Tsarevich's right hand. It rests on Ivan's arm, not gripping, not pushing away, just resting there, a gentle touch. And that touch suggests something unbearable, forgiveness, or at least the absence of blame. The son doesn't hate his father in this moment. He's just confused, just dying, just wondering why. In the traditional Pieta, Christ has already forgiven humanity. His sacrifice is willing, his death has meaning. Here, the son forgives without understanding. His touch says, I don't know why you did this, but I don't hate you for it. And that makes Ivan's guilt infinite. Because if the son raged, if he fought, if he cursed his father with his dying breath, Ivan could hold on to anger, could justify it somehow, could tell himself the son deserved it. But this gentle, confused, forgiving touch, this destroys him. Repin understood that the worst punishment isn't hatred, it's undeserved forgiveness. It's being shown mercy when you deserve none. It's having your victim refuse to become your enemy. The Pieta is supposed to offer comfort, supposed to show that death has meaning. That sacrifice leads to resurrection. That loss can be redeemed. Repin's inverted Pieta offers no comfort at all. This death has no meaning. This sacrifice redeems nothing. This loss is permanent, and the person who caused it has to live with it. Death-ease, that's the true horror. Now look closer. Look at Ivan the Terrible's face. Look at those eyes. They're bulging, not quite natural. The whites are visible all around the irises, completely surrounding them. This is called Sampaku eyes in Japanese physiognomy, traditionally associated with instability, with danger, with someone whose inner balance has been destroyed. But here, in this moment, they communicate something else entirely. Absolute horror. Ivan is staring at nothing and everything simultaneously. His gaze doesn't fix on any single point. He's not looking at his son's wound, not looking at the blood. He's looking at the future, at everything this moment has destroyed. The succession, the dynasty, his own soul. The pupils are dilated, massively. Shocked as this. The body floods with adrenaline, and the pupils expand, trying to take in more information, trying to understand what just happened. But there's no understanding available here, only consequences. Notice the eyebrows? Raised, creating deep horizontal lines across his forehead. This is the universal expression of shock, of disbelief, of no, this can't be real. You see this expression in every culture. Every human being makes this face when they witness something their mind refuses to accept. We've all seen this face. Maybe not to this extreme, maybe not surrounded by blood and death, but we've all seen someone realize they've destroyed something they can't fix, said something they can't take back, done something they can't undo, and we recognize it instantly. That's why viewers reported feeling physically ill looking at Ivan's face when the painting toured Europe. Not because it's grotesque, not because it's exaggerated, because it's recognizable, because somewhere deep down we understand what it feels like to realize you've destroyed everything. One viewer fainted in front of the painting in 1886, overcome by the expression. Another wrote to Repin, "I saw my own face in Ivan's eyes. I have never forgiven myself." That's the genius of it. Repin didn't paint a monster. He painted a mirror. And when people look into that mirror, when they see Ivan's bulging eyes and open mouth and gathering tears, they don't see a Tsar from 1581. They see themselves. They see their own worst moment, their own irreversible mistake, their own "what have I done?" That's why the painting has been attacked. That's why people have tried to destroy it. Because it shows us something we don't want to see. Something we spend our entire lives trying to avoid looking at. The moment when we become the villain in our own story. The moment when our rage, our pride, our inability to control ourselves for just 30 seconds destroys everything we love. Ivan's eyes don't just show his horror, they show ours. Look at the room around them. This isn't just a painting of two men. This is a crime scene. And the room itself tells the story of what happened before this moment. The carpet is crumpled, wrinkled, disturbed. You can see the folds and creases where feet have struggled, where bodies have moved violently. This suggests a fight, not just a single blow, an argument that became physical, a struggle before the staff came down. In the background, barely visible in the shadows, furniture is overturned, and most importantly, the throne, the symbol of absolute power, the seat from which Ivan the Terrible ruled all of Russia. It's tipped over, knocked aside, lying useless in the darkness. The symbolism is deliberate. Power has been overthrown. Authority has collapsed. The throne that represented control now represents chaos. Look at where the blood has pooled. There's a larger stain on the carpet, slightly to the left. That's where the Tsarevich fell. That's the initial impact point. Where his head hit the carpet and the blood first started flowing. But now they've moved. Ivan has scooped up his son, pulled him into this embrace, shifted position, and you can see the blood trail, the smears across the carpet where Ivan's robes have dragged through it, the secondary pool forming where they sit now. A crime scene tells you the sequence. Strike, fall, realization, movement, embrace, each stage marked in blood. And there, in the lower left corner, lies the murder weapon, the staff. Ornate, heavy, the scepter that represents Ivan's authority, the symbol of his power. It's been thrown aside, discarded, lying on the carpet like evidence. Now look at the lighting. The background is dark, murky, deliberately obscured. Repin doesn't want you looking at the throne room's architecture. He doesn't want you distracted by decorative details. Everything in the background fades into shadow. But there's a subtle light coming through what appears to be a window on the left. Dim, fading. It's twilight, the end of day, the end of light, and metaphorically, the end of everything. Twilight is the transition between day and night, between light and darkness, between life and death. It's the in-between time, and that's exactly when this moment happens. In the transition, in the ending. Yet the two figures are lit differently, unnaturally. There's no realistic light source that would create this illumination. They're lit as if by a spotlight, as if by divine judgment. The light falls on them from nowhere, isolating them, making them the only things that matter in this vast, dark room. The painting debuted at the Imperial Academy exhibition in St. Petersburg in 1885. The reaction was immediate, visceral, divided. Some viewers stood in front of it for minutes, unable to look away. Others walked past quickly, refusing to engage with it at all. Some called it a masterpiece, others called it an obscenity. And then Alexander III saw it. The Tsar himself came to view this painting of a Tsar murdering his heir, and he understood immediately what Repin was saying. This wasn't just history. This was commentary. This was warning. This could be you. This will be you if you let rage control power. Within days, the painting was banned from public display. The official reason given was that depicting a Russian Tsar committing patricide was damaging to the monarchy's reputation. That showing such violence undermined respect for imperial authority. But the real reason was simpler, more personal. Alexander III had just witnessed his own father blown apart by a terrorist bomb. He'd seen what happens when authority is challenged, when power is questioned, when violence reaches the throne. And here was Repin, painting a different kind of violence. Not revolutionary violence from below, but self-destructive violence from above. The throne destroying itself, power consuming its own future. That was more dangerous than any bomb, because bombs come from enemies. But this violence comes from within, from rage, from pride, from the inability to control yourself for 30 seconds. And Alexander III knew, looking at Ivan's bulging eyes and open mouth and blood-covered hands, that any Tsar could become this. That absolute power plus human weakness equals tragedy. Always. So he banned it. But the ban didn't last. Months later, through the intervention of well-connected artists, the painting was allowed back into galleries, allowed to be seen again. The controversy, however, never ended, because Russia couldn't agree on a simple question. Did Ivan the Terrible actually kill his son? Or was this painting the greatest lie in Russian art history? January 16th, 1913, 28 years after the painting's debut, the Tretyakov Gallery, Moscow. Abraham Balashov is 29 years old, mentally disabled, and he's walking through the museum halls with a knife hidden in his coat. Security doesn't stop him. Why would they? He's just another visitor. Just another person come to see Russia's greatest masterpieces. He stops in front of Repin's painting, the massive canvas. Ivan and his son, blood and horror frozen in oil and canvas. He stares at it. His breathing gets faster. His hands start shaking. And then he starts screaming, "Enough death! Enough blood!" The knife comes out. 3 vertical slashes, deep, vicious, cutting through canvas, through paint, through 28 years of history. Guards rush in. They tackle him to the ground. He's still screaming, still fighting. Enough blood. Enough blood. The painting is removed immediately. The damage is severe. 3 long gashes, canvas separated, paint destroyed, years of work ruined in seconds. When Grigory Kruzhlov, the gallery curator responsible for protecting the painting, hears what happened, he doesn't speak. He doesn't cry. He doesn't rage at the security guards who let a man with a knife walk through the gallery. He simply walks out of the building, heads to the nearest train station, and jumps in front of an oncoming locomotive. The painting can be restored. He cannot. Ilya Repin, now 69 years old, personally oversees the restoration. It takes months. The canvas is carefully stitched back together. Paint is painstakingly reapplied. The tears are repaired as well as possible, but the scars remain visible. If you look closely at the painting today, you can still see where Balashev's knife cut through. Faint lines, permanent marks. The painting survived, but it was wounded. And Khrushchev's death becomes part of the painting's legend. The first death directly connected to the artwork, not someone in the painting, not someone from the story it depicts, but someone who existed because of it, who died because of it. The curse was no longer theoretical, no longer metaphorical. The curse was real, and it had claimed its first victim, May 25th, 2018, 105 years after the first attack. The same gallery, the same painting. A man walks through the Tretyakov gallery. He approaches the painting. Ivan and his son, the scars from 1913 still faintly visible on the canvas, protected now behind glass, guarded, monitored, but not protected enough. He reaches down and pulls a metal pole from a crowd control barrier. Heavy, solid, a weapon. And before anyone can stop him, he swings it at the painting. The glass shatters. The sound echoes through the gallery. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. He keeps swinging, smashing, trying to destroy what's behind the glass. The canvas punctures. Paint chips away. The protective glass does its job, mostly, but the damage still reaches through. The pole breaks through in places, creates tears, destroys sections that Repin painted 133 years earlier. Guards tackle him, pull him away from the wreckage. Glass everywhere, the painting damaged. Again. And as they drag him out, he screams the same thing over and over. Ivan did not kill his son. Ivan did not kill his son. Not enough blood like Balashev screamed in 1913, but the opposite, defending Ivan's honor, attacking what he sees as a lie, as slander against a Russian Tsar, as Western propaganda designed to make Russia look brutal and savage. Because something had changed in Russia between 1913 and 2018. In 2016, 2 years before this attack, Vladimir Putin's government erected a statue of Ivan the Terrible in the city of Oriol, bronze. Massive, imposing, Ivan on horseback. A hero, a founder, a symbol of Russian strength. Putin himself said, even the terrible wasn't that terrible. He was a great leader who expanded Russia's borders, who made Russia powerful, who did what needed to be done. And suddenly, Repin's painting wasn't just controversial. It was anti-nationalist. It was attacking a Russian hero. It was saying that Russian strength equals Russian brutality, that Russian power equals Russian tragedy. And that made people angry. Angry enough to attack, to try to destroy, to silence what the painting says. The painting shows violence, and the painting creates violence. The cycle feeds itself. The image generates the thing it depicts. Today, the painting hangs in the Tretyakov gallery in Moscow, behind reinforced glass, with security guards stationed permanently nearby, watching, waiting, in case it happens again, because the timeline speaks for itself. 1581, Ivan kills his son. 1885, Repin paints it. 1913, the painting is stabbed. The curator kills himself. 1963, the bodies reveal mercury poisoning. 2018, the painting is smashed again. The violence in the painting doesn't stay contained. It leaks out, generates more violence, creates victims beyond the canvas. The artwork doesn't just show tragedy, it becomes tragedy. And people still can't look at it without feeling something overwhelming. The comments from visitors over the decades remain consistent. I can't look at those eyes without feeling sick. The expression haunts me. It's the most powerful painting I've ever seen. You don't need to know the history to feel the horror. That's what Repin achieved. He painted a moment so truthfully, so viscerally, that it transcends time, it transcends culture, it becomes universal. Because we all understand what those eyes mean. We've all had a moment when we realized we destroyed something we can't fix, said something we can't take back, did something irreversible. Maybe not murder, maybe not on this scale. But we recognize that expression. That "what have I done" frozen on. We still believe we can control our rage, still believe we can strike and then apologize, still believe we can destroy and then rebuild. But some things, once broken, stay broken. The painting remains, the curse continues, and we still cannot look away.